Hello, good evening. It is 6:01 p.m. on January 12th, 2026. You are in the Portland, Maine Board of Education Finance, Personnel, and Operations Committee meeting. Welcome. My name is Sarah Bryden. I'm chair of the committee. We have with us Board Member Opperman, who is a member of the committee, and Board Member Sawtell, who is a member of the committee as well. From staff, we have Superintendent Scallon, we have Tamara Sweeney from Operations, we have Lisa Beck and Heather Peters from Finance, and we have Jennifer Slaybank from HR. Great bunch of folks to have a conversation with this evening. Just super high level in terms of a preview of the agenda. We're going to be talking about the capital improvement plan. In our last committee meeting, we had initial conversation about that, and today we're going to be voting that out of committee onto the full board. We are going to have a conversation, one of many, about the fiscal year 2027 budget. We are going to have an update on the org structure for the district, and then there are two policy review conversations that we're going to have as part of the broader policy review process that has been ongoing for several meetings and will continue for several meetings as well. I'm going to take a beat and check and see if we have any folks who might be here as attendees to give public comment. If there's any folks, well, I see at least one Zoom hand up. So we will be doing public comment. If you would like to give public comment, raise a Zoom hand, and I will go over the policies and procedures related to that. Okay, so let's see. All right, here are the guidelines for public comment. Members of the public may speak on any subjects directly related to the operations of the schools, except for personnel matters or complaints concerning specific employees or students, because that has to be addressed through established policies and procedures. Comments are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes, 6 minutes if you're using an interpreter. You may not relinquish a portion of your time to another speaker. We on the committee are not going to respond to comments. Speakers must refrain from engaging in disruptive conduct, including using vulgar or obscene language, threatening others by using words or by other actions, using pejorative or discriminatory language with reference to a person or a group on the basis of their religion, ethnicity, nationality, race, color, descent, gender, or other identity factor, making defamatory comments, exceeding the allotted time limits, talking over or interrupting others, offering repetitive comments, or offering comment on matters unrelated to the district's programs, policies, or operations. If there's public comment that's contrary to these rules, I will stop public comment. Again, if you want to give public comment, raise your hand in Zoom. You should begin by introducing yourself with your name and where you live. And I will keep the time. I'll let you know when you have about 30 seconds left, and then I will let you know when your time is over. And I will now move back over to this screen, and it looks like Emily Hill has a Zoom hand raised. So if we could move her over, that would be great. I'm going to get my stopwatch ready. Hi, Emily. You
Sarah.
can go ahead.
Hi, my name is Emily Hill. I live in the West End and I have two children at the Reiki school. I'm a Mainer who also went to public school growing up. And I'm just here to advocate specifically for Reiki school and the specific requests that they made in the budget proposal, particularly and just emphasizing how much need there is in that school in particular, and how the crucial role that ed techs play in supporting the students there. And how that, for example, there's not even a French-speaking ed tech, and French is one of the main languages that is spoken by so many of the students at Reiki. And there's one sole math interventionist who is sort of single-handedly providing specialized math instruction, particularly to the multilingual students. So I'm just speaking in support of making sure that the requests made by the lead teachers of our beloved local school are implemented in the budget going forward so that the children across the district, particularly at such a high need school as Reiki, are accessing an appropriate, adequate, and equitable education that other students across the district also deserve. And I just want to say that I appreciate the work that you're all doing, and thank you for taking into account my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. If there's anybody else who would like to give public comment, go ahead and raise. Okay, Joshua Ryman has a Zoom hand up. If we could move him over. Go ahead, Joshua. You can unmute yourself. Go ahead.
Okay, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, you have 3 minutes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So my name is Joshua Ryman. I'm the president of the Reiki PTO, and I just wanted to echo a couple of things that Emily said, but really just I'm here to advocate for more ed techs and a broader consideration for the needs of Reiki school. Um, uh, Ryan Scallon has been super generous in training us with Budget 101 and understanding all the needs across the district, which are many. And I understand about equity and everything, but Reiki specifically has some needs that might be different than other places. Specifically with having more interventionists and ed techs to help support the classrooms. One thing, just this is me also speaking as a just a parent of a fourth grader. I've found that being on the Reiki PTO board over the last 5 years has really been eye-opening to the fact that many of the teachers would have upwards of 25 students in a class. And if I look down if I looked at the analytics of the class or the data that's out there, they might have like 4 or 5 English speaking as a first language, and the rest are English as a second language. So there is quite a lot of needs. So I'm just echoing basically what Emily was saying, but also just putting my voice in here as the president of the PTO and having seen how the school operates and what they do with what they have. It's really amazing. I'm a proud parent of the school. My son loves it there, but I really love the community, and I really would advocate for more financial support. Also understanding the tax rate and the mill rate of the city as being, an issue for lots of people, but thinking about how much, if you think about this, we, not a lot of people that are going to the Reiki school own homes. Like many of the students, possibly even up to 1 in 5, are housing insecure, food insecure, things like that. But it's not reflected in the taxes that are paid and by the state. So the state giving a certain percentage to the budget, and then how that's allocated out to all the different schools within the district. But Reiki, it's kind of this strange anomaly where we might need a little bit more help than people think. And so I just want to put my voice in there. And I also appreciate what you're all doing and how you're all giving your time to such an excellent cause. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Joshua. Anybody else wanting to give public comment would raise a Zoom hand. I'm going to give it a moment and check to see if anybody else is going to do so. All right, seeing no more raised hands, I'm going to close public comment. And we will move through our agenda, beginning with capital improvement plan. So, Dr. Scallon, is there anything you wanted to say before Director Sweeney presents that content?
No, so this is a pickup from, as you said, what Director Sweeney threw me off there for a second. Presented at the last, and so tonight we will be looking for you to not just approve the overall number, but to also just be in support of the projects. And so looking forward to this discussion tonight.
Sounds great. And also just a quick note, I see that Board Member Noor, who is also a member of the committee, has joined us. So the entire committee is present. Sorry for that. Go ahead.
Good evening. I think I'm presenting my screen right now. Can everybody see the presentation? Okay, awesome. So I'm presenting some more discussion or options on the capital plan, and we can just go through them. This is just follow-up conversation to what we started in December. So the first slide talks about The purpose, requesting the Finance and Operations and HR Committee direction on a capital funding option to advance to the school board and then to the city council. I put together 3 options. The first option is a $2.9 million ask, addresses most of the urgent priority 1 needs and defers the Portland High School masonry and the Paths HVAC. Option number 2 is a $3.65 million ask. It addresses most priority 1 needs and defers the Paths HVAC. And then option 3 is a $5.7 million ask and addresses all priority 1 needs plus priority 2 security camera upgrades. So we can briefly go through those projects. Option 1, and we'll just quickly review these. These were presented in December. So option 1 is central office HVAC multilingual rooftop unit, Deering High School storefront that failed, and a district-wide HVAC systems ask of $2 million. We have Paths, replacing the sanitary floor drains that serve the auto garage. Peaks Island, that's an additional fund for the second phase of the interior and ADA renovations over at Peaks. And then Lincoln Middle School gym, the roof delaminated in November. So those are option 1. Option 2 is all those same asks except for the addition of, let me see, option 2 is the addition of the Portland High School masonry, which is this one right here for $750,000. And then option 3 is all of those plus including the Paths HVAC and then adding the cameras upgrades at the end of this ask. Each option, we can go back. Each option I put what the annual debt service cost would be over 20 years. So that you can help make an informed decision on how we want, to spend how we would look at spending the money. And then at the end of these slides, I've also included all the projects that were not included in these 3 options, in case you wanted to discuss those projects also. I don't know if you want me to stop right there for discussion before I go into the procurement slide.
Can you actually go through the procurement slide as well so that we can incorporate that information in our discussion?
Sure.
Thank you.
So the district's taking a coordinated phased approach to long-term facilities and energy planning by going to RFQ, which is request for qualifications for an ESCO company. So what that would do would be, we would be pre-qualifying an ESCO, which is an energy services company for energy efficiency and air quality improvement projects. And that draft is currently with finance in purchasing department. And I was told that the final draft would be to me tomorrow. So that's a performance-based approach with guaranteed savings and required measurement and verification. The second one is a request for proposal for a facilities assessment and master plan. So that would be a district-wide evaluation of building conditions, any deferred maintenance, ADA and life safety, and long-term capital needs. And that draft is also currently with the Finance and Purchasing Department. And what that is, it would be prioritizing a long-range facilities roadmap to inform our future CIP decisions, recognizing that long-term facility needs may require additional CIP funding in future years. We might have to up the ask of what we're looking to do in future years.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the last slide is just, an appendix of some questions that you might have of the different options.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's useful information. Thank you so much. I will open the floor up to committee members who might have questions. Board Member Opperman, go ahead.
Sorry, Tamara, can you just pull down your screen?
Pull down my screen? Absolutely.
Yeah, so people can see each other. Thanks.
Oh, you're muted.
Okay, now
That's better.
I'm glad. I guess I'm going to start at the end because it makes me, and the idea of how long it will take to get a plan and to get um, take action on any kind of a plan, because I think that makes a difference in how much we do invest in ahead of time. So, is there any thought on the length of time it will take to get the RFQs and RFPs and find certainly RFP and have the information back to us? Is that we're talking 1 year, 2 years on that, I imagine?
So for the RFP, I would once we go out to bid and we pick somebody, and it would be probably at least a 6 month. It would probably be at least 6 months. So it would be another. I would propose. I would think by the next year's our CIP cycle that we should have some understanding on asks.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
As a follow-up to that question, is the RFQ process, I know it's a smaller document, is it also potentially a little less cumbersome and able to be moved forward a little bit faster?
Yes, I would get. I don't think that the district's ever done an RFQ from my understanding, so I think it's all new to us, but we're working with Drummond and Woodson on that and with Lisa's guidance. But yes, it seems to be a little bit, at least for the first part of it, the qualification part. I don't know the planning part, how long that will take after after we make a decision on who we would pick, how long that process would take.
Okay. Board Member Sawtelle, go ahead.
Hi, this is just a real quick question, but some of us went out and visited Peaks Island, and their front door camera is not functioning. Would that be considered part of the overall security cameras, or is that like a relatively easy, cheap fix that would not necessarily be part of this?
First I'm hearing that their camera's not working. So I'm not aware. I'd have to look into that a little bit more.
Okay, thanks.
And just as a follow-up question to that, in option 3, the security cameras item, if I'm understanding correctly, that would be an upgrade, but our facilities currently have cameras, correct? They're just outdated?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. All the facilities have cameras.
Okay.
But many of them need upgrade or addition.
Okay. All right. So one thing that I'm curious about is whatever we vote through to the full board, assuming that then moves through the board process and the city process and all that, I want to go back in about 90 seconds of this conversation to the question about timing, and it being about 6 months for the RFP process to really work its way through and be able to identify who is available to do a facilities review for the entire district and what that might look like. My question has to do with whatever we move through this process right now. My assumption is that it's not going to get done in the next 6 months, right? So like the body of work that we're being asked to vote on is a year's worth of work, less, more. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So some of the items are faster moving than others. For example, the Daring High School storefront doors is probably something that can get moved through fairly quickly. Some of the other, or it really depends on the project.
Okay. Thank
That's
you
a
for
clarifying question on that,
Yeah.
just to like make sure that we're fully answering the question. Tamara, I think there's 2 different parts to that. One is about the bonding process, and then the second is about how long it takes to do the work, right? And so if we were to bond the storefront project, When do you estimate that we would have access to those funds? And then second, how much longer after that do you estimate that the project would take for completion?
So the city seems to as soon as they go through the city council vote, it's pretty fast. I can't remember exactly how long, maybe maybe a month or two. It seems like they send me a new project list and it's listed as a project. And then then going through for something like that, you don't have to go through the full RFP. You can go for more of the bid proposal. So it takes a little bit less time. It probably would still be, another 9 months or so before the work could get done. For that type of project. Other projects are going to take longer.
Yeah. And just for context, part of the reason why I'm asking that question is, thinking about bonding for these projects and, how much do we want to move forward now versus waiting to be able to get an updated facilities review and having, up-to-date information. Board Member Opperman, I see you, but I just wanted to check, Dr. Warren, were you raising your hand to respond to that last bit of conversation?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that, and I'm sorry because I do the other committee, I'm not always here, so I apologize if this is already clear and obvious. But I just want to make sure that it's clear that we're basically talking about two processes in parallel. One being the RFP process to select someone to do that assessment for us, which we can get going on now, but wouldn't begin until after July 1st when we have the hopefully approved operational budget to pay for that. And in the meantime, what's being presented here in the CIP budget are things that we already know need to get done, either because they were already on the list before and we just haven't gotten to them yet, or because we see the need and they fall into that category of safe, warm, and dry. So, I mean, Tamara, correct me if I'm wrong, but my sense is that the odds of us completing that study down, in several months after we've gotten to that point, the odds of us doing that and not having these things on the list that ultimately come through from those consultants, I think would be pretty low. Like these are things we know we need to do. I'm not sure that would change that much based on the facilities assessment. Maybe some of the priorities might shift, but we're already kind of at the highest level of priority here with what Tamara's put forward. So I just want to make sure that folks are aware that those are kind of two things I think can operate in parallel.
Yeah, just to make sure I'm following what you're saying, essentially, once the new facilities review is complete, there will likely be more things, but in the last 10 years, nothing has magically resolved itself. Okay.
And just for me to add, some of these systems have already failed. That's why they're on this list. So some we know are going to fail. Some have already failed. Storefront doors failed.
Yeah.
The, roof delaminating fail. We're just temporarily piecing things together to keep them going for now.
Board Member Opperman, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Two things. One, I hear you, Tamara, and so I will propose 3 when we get to that point, because this is just, it's a lot of money, but heavens to Betsy, these kids have to be somewhere comfy and warm and able to learn. The one question I do have is, it's on a couple slides. It's the district-wide HVAC system, and that isn't assigned to anything particular at this point, any particular building?
No, there's lots of needs out there for HVAC. I have lists of stuff. So we would just, prioritize as things happen. We might even defer to make sure, at the time that this is approved, we might reevaluate which pieces are more important than others.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Tamara, just to clarify that real quick. I think at one point the presentation that the committee saw, that $2 million district HVAC was particularly targeted towards Lincoln.
Yep.
And so I'm going to say this and just correct me if I'm wrong here, but just to be really clear for everybody, this is still that same project and earmarked for Lincoln. There's a number of other projects that also could fit within the
Correct.
HVAC. And so one of the things we're trying to do here is to make sure that it's available for Lincoln and that work, and to maintain flexibility at the district level as we learn more about Lincoln setup and what would be required to change it, that we could shift some of the funds to another school if need be.
Right. Yep.
As a follow-up to that, is there a requirement? I guess I'm wanting to better understand how high level we can be. So, I mean, obviously we can't say $4 million to fix things. I mean, like we have to be somewhat specific, and I'm wanting to better understand how generic and specific, like where that threading that needle, how that works.
So I had a conversation I had an email exchange with Brendan, the city's finance director, regarding this subject. I'm trying to pull it up right now so I can use his words. And he said that other departments in the city use general terms, almost kind of similar to like me saying district-wide camera upgrades, that you could do more generic, like knowing and making, being able to be more flexible with the funds. And so he said as long as I have some backup information for it when presented to like the city, rather than just like, we're just going to fix things, like you said, that it's more like geared toward certain types of projects with a little bit of priority and how we would prioritize.
And that's really helpful. Thank you. So to sort of bring that forward, the next logical step in my brain, would that allow us the flexibility to say, this HVAC investment could, if everything falls apart at Lincoln and needs to be remediated immediately, we could use it for that, or we could use it for HVAC improvements as recommended as a result of this RFQ process, and, use the HVAC umbrella to encompass a number of different types of projects. Is that accurate?
Yep, that's accurate.
Okay. Thank you. Board Member Opperman, go ahead. You are muted.
That's interesting to know, Tamara, because I'm wondering, looking at the list, trying to skimming it quickly, there are ADA projects, there are HVAC projects, there are structural projects, external structural projects. I don't know whether, we would want to have something more general in that, or is this how you want it?
So I think it would create more flexibility if we grouped them. This was just, I wasn't even really aware that we could do that until recently. And I didn't want to like start moving things around from our conversation last month. My only concern would be if we grouped them, let's say I left the school district and somebody else came in as the director, would they know what our goal was, or what projects we should be doing? I just worry about the,
They would, because you would leave amazing documentation, except you're not leaving us. So that's all.
I'm just saying, like in general, like, that's my only concern.
Backup.
Where the city wouldn't have the documentation, they would just have like one, district-wide HVAC systems. And
okay, well, it's something to think about at some point, perhaps.
That is a good thing to think about. So looking at the three options, option 1 being 2.9 million, option 2 being 3.65 million, and option 3 being 5.7 million, there's a bit of a range there. Specifically comparing, I know I've heard a little, preview that there's some support for option 3. just looking at 2.9 million compared to 5.7 million. Can we talk a little bit about what that means in terms of the bonding process and what that means for a property taxpayer in the city of Portland?
I don't know what that means for tax levy, but I know what it would cost us for annual debt service, compared. That's in the option, but I don't know if somebody from finance, I don't know
Mhm.
what it would be for tax differences.
Is the debt service the portion that you put below? Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And that's on an annual for
Yep.
20 years. And sorry, Heather and I were communicating behind the scenes just as she's running the number. Heather, the question's just a increase of $451,000 to the budget. What is that for a tax levy?
Right, it's 9.35%.
It can't be, you're talking about overall.
Overall, right. So right now in what we're presenting today, we have 9.0. So
Okay.
adding the 451 brings us to 9.35.
So it's about 1/3%.
Right.
In tax increase.
Okay. And then my other question is, so if we were to go with the more pared down, if we went with option 1, allowing us to address the most urgent priority 1 needs, obviously, the downside of that would be some things don't get done. I mean, in all 3 of these options, some things don't get done. But I'm curious about if we go with option 1 and one of the things that's not in option 1 becomes worse, like a roof just like goes from delaminated to like there's a hole in the building, like something like that. I'm curious about how the district would handle that, or what the options would be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. What would be the options? It would just be, band-aiding it with operations money until we can get a capital plan and, project
Yeah.
approved.
Okay.
Yeah. Most of these are big. It wouldn't be something that we could just do with
Right.
operations. But yeah, some of these are big projects. So,
Yeah.
and they will get worse. They will
Yeah.
get worse.
Board Member Opperman, go ahead.
Yes, I think when we're looking at the CIP and what you've said in previous years, it really, I mean, even if it goes through the city and you set things right out in June, it may be 2 years before some of these things get done. So if we wait another year, it's another year of damage to get done, and another year that's why we got in this place this position in the first place. Is my concern. And I think we need new buildings, but I'm not seeing that the taxes are going to do that at all. So that's it.
Yeah. So I will say that I just, I am not as inclined to support option 3. Everything that everybody has been saying is valid. But given the discrepancy between 2.9 and 5.7, I am feeling like it would be more appropriate to go with either option 1 or option 2, and then have the opportunity to see what the RFQ and the RFP process, how that pans out. Also, how the district facilities review might illuminate different ways to use our buildings, things like that. So I would be more inclined to move forward with 1 or 2. I also invite, board members Noor or Sawtelle to ask any questions that they want to ask before we get to the part of the meeting where we are moving one of the options forward. I'm not sure if board member Sawtelle, go ahead.
I don't know how to say this. How much worse are the steps at Portland High than they have been for the last 15 years?
How much worse are they?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what they were 15 years ago, but I can tell you it's not just, the steps have definitely separated. This is not just the steps, it's also the other side of the building where the masonry is crumbling and coming down like it was in the front of the building.
What
So,
side? I taught at Portland High, so I'm trying to
what's the left side of the building? What street is that over there?
Chestnut Street.
Yeah. So that entrance, the can't even talk, sorry, is all coming and crumbling down like it was in front in the facade. Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
So, and water and intrusion, it will just make it worse. So,
Board Member
So-
Opperman, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Some pushing buttons. I seem to have trouble with that. So when you're talking about doing the steps, you're actually talking about the whole doorway. Is that correct?
so two different two different situations. The front steps, the actual steps would get redone.
Mhm.
And then the side on Elm Street, that front facade over top of the entrance over there.
Okay, so it's
Yeah.
not the steps on the side, it's the steps up the
In
first.
the front of the building, yeah.
Where all that stuff was all built up. And then the facade on the side. So all of that is in the steps. Okay.
Correct. I think I put like, let me see what the description, I thought I put like
And
mason.
masonry, you did. You did.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
So to follow up on Board Member Sawtell's question about, or the implication that I think I heard around Portland High School having some issues for years, I am interested in a couple of sentences, quick, high-level analysis of what, without being naively optimistic, what is realistic in terms of potential consolidation efforts and high school for the future. Meaning, should we be investing $750,000 in steps of a building that might, within the next 5-10 years, be replaced?
Well, I don't think it's going to be 5 years. That
Okay.
would be, even if we went into construction now, 5 years is, that's a discussion that you guys have to, I don't really have an answer on that. We could say it could happen in 10 years and then it never comes to
Right.
fruition. And then we're back into the same
Yep.
situation where we just defer maintenance for.
Board Member Sawtell, go ahead.
I'm using the new Chromebook and I'm not as facile with it as I was with the MacBook. So I just closed the agenda that I was looking at, but it seemed like in your presentation, in option 2, why wasn't the HVAC at paths included? And did it say like it was, good enough for now kind of thing? Is that what it said?
So right now, there's no immediate life safety issue and there's no operational risk. We know that it needs to be replaced, and to bring it up to code, it requires 100% fresh air to be brought into that. And that's where the big cost is to replace.
So my question is, I know the policy committee has been working on stuff about heat, right? And like temperature control within classrooms. Am I right about that? Maybe I'm confused. And
Yeah,
I'm just,
extreme heat policy, right?
It's temperature standards policy. They're just looking at it tonight, actually.
so is that something that would we be out of policy with the way the current heat is? My classroom at Portland High literally some days was 95 degrees, and other days, which I vastly preferred, it was 60. So I'm really well aware of the extremes it can be, but is it that bad at paths?
No, like I said, this is really in regards to bringing in 100% fresh air into the vocational, into the paths, be it building B. That's what it is. We know that it eventually is right now the units are working properly. We'll just keep them moving until we can replace them with the code. It's really basically, it's not within code.
Okay, thanks.
Board Member Opperman, go ahead.
So And when you're talking, it passes the lab area where they're actually working with wood and metal and
Yeah, building B, right. Yep.
building B. So
Yep.
that's, it's like a science lab type concern would be mine.
Dr. Warren, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to just to put a bow on that conversation around the temperatures policy. It's just for people's awareness, it's a lower end proposed. This is just a draft policy right now. The lower end would be 65 degrees and the upper end would be 82 degrees. But it doesn't, it essentially says that if we go below or above that range, that we'll work on fixing it. So I don't think it has a huge connection to the HVAC work, other than that we need to keep doing the HVAC work and improving our HVAC systems.
Okay. I am looking at the time. It is 6:42. So I would welcome a motion to move one of the options forward. Just looking at the agenda and all of the other topics that we have. Board Member Opperman, go ahead.
Yes, I move that we choose option 3 to move forward to the school board.
Thank you, Board Member Opperman. Is there a second? Board Member Noor, thank you so much. Okay, so questions on the motion from committee members. Board Member Noor, go ahead.
I have a procedural question. If we were to go with option 3 and bring it to the board, would the board have all 3 options? Could they go backwards and choose another option, or is it just that one and that's how it goes forward? It either gets denied or pushed forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. My understanding is that it would move forward as option 3. The whole package would move forward to the whole board, and then my understanding is that the full board would have the ability to tweak it. Not necessarily. I don't think procedurally we would go back and say, hey, do you prefer option 2 instead? But my understanding is that the full board could take things out. Is that an accurate summary? I'm looking to, I think, Dr. Scallon for confirmation of whether I'm correct on that.
Can you just say that again slower?
Sure, yeah. So what I think is true is that if this committee moves forward option 3 to the full board, tomorrow night's business meeting is going to have a first read. And then in a subsequent business meeting, it'll be a second read. And in that conversation at the business meeting, there will be the opportunity to remove items, adjust, not necessarily move to option 2, but to make adjustments to what is on the list that comprises option 3. Is that accurate?
I think that's accurate, except I'm not sure that it would prohibit the board from moving to option 2 or option 1.
Okay.
Through the subtraction of projects.
Got it. Okay. Yep. That is useful. Thank you. Board Member Noor, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Other questions about the motion? And we will move to discussion from committee members if there is anything you would like to say before we vote. All right, so we will move into the vote. Board Member Opperman.
Yes, I would like option 3.
Board Member Sawtelle.
I would prefer a different option, so no.
No. Board Member Noor.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And I will vote yes to move this along to the full board so it can be discussed in that forum. So the motion passes, and we will be moving option 3 along to the full board for a first read tomorrow. All right. So that concludes our conversation about capital improvement plan. I appreciate all of the effort that went into this. Director Sweeney, thank you so much. Also for your patience with all of our questions. And now we are going to be moving on to our FY 2027 budget conversation.
Thank you for that. And I'm going to welcome Lisa Beck, who's our Senior Director of Finance, here to walk through everything. But just to put this in context with where we're at in the process, tonight we're not coming to you with a formal proposal. But we want to continue to inform and keep the committee up to date on the work that is happening within the district as we put together the fiscal year 27 budget. Part of that work has been about looking at the roll forward budget. So what it would be if we just continue the same programming next year that we have this year. We want to provide a small update on that. And then we have been working with our department leads and our school directors to share what adjustments they would like to see in the budget. And so we're sharing, again, just for transparency's sake, that tonight so that you know where we're at in the conversation and what that looks like. And so it is just, I'm going to say this 5 times in this presentation, it is not what the actual ask is or what the proposal is, but it is simply where we are at in the discussion so that you are aware and can help provide guidance as we go through. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa and I will pull up the screen.
Good evening, everyone. Just pause a moment for the slides to come up.
Can you see that?
Yes, thank you. All right, so we have taken the time with the roll forward budget to separate out adult ed and food service from the PK through 12 general fund. And so I did want to call out, when we last spoke about the roll forward budget, we presented you a 4.82% tax levy increase. If we just separate that out to the pre-K through 12 general fund, it is only a 3.51% tax levy increase if we just roll forward our existing programming. Adult ed and food service both have gaps in their budget that their fund balances won't be able to cover. And so we will be presenting options and making recommendations at a future meeting for how to address those. So for adult ed, that shortfall is $556,000, and then food services is $1.2 million. In terms of our next steps in our process, now that we've got that roll forward budget in place, the next step is we are requesting from school leaders and department heads all of their asks. So those have come in and we are currently reviewing those. So personnel, that would be increases or decreases to current staffing, stipends, and teacher additional pay. In the non-personnel space, we started with giving schools a guideline around a 2% increase overall, and asked them to project their needed funds for all of their items like contracted services, dues and fees, employee training, etc. In the departments, we asked them to start with a zero-based budget and project all expenses without assuming any given increase. So with that guidance, we've taken in all of the requests from the school leaders and the department heads. And if we can go to the next slide, please. All requests that we did receive, we asked the school leaders and department heads to justify and align to the strategic plan or a measurable outcome. So the next steps are for the cabinet to actually review all of these requests, which we've started over a series of meetings. What we present today would just be what it looks like if all of those requests got approved. Not that that's what we're going to do, but just to give you a point of consideration. So the budget increase above what we presented for the roll forward, if we did all of these asks, would be a 6.96 million increase, which is 4.04 million for personnel and 2.93 million for non-personnel. If we approved all of these requests, the resulting tax levy would be 9%. Again, that doesn't include the CPI that we just talked about. And so with that option 3, that would actually bring us to 9.35%. Head to the next slide. And so the next meeting on January 26th of this committee is when we will be presenting to you the cabinet's recommendation on which requests they believe that we should be making investment in, and we will be looking for your feedback at that time. And then this is the same slide I showed you previously, but just as a reminder by month of what happens. So we're currently in that phase of reviewing all investment requests. And then the first public forum is happening in February.
Lisa, thank you for that. Before we share or at least direct board members to the Excel that's shared in Diligent, can I just add one piece around this first slide? So, because I don't want anybody to also think that there's a proposal here to cut adult ed's budget or to cut food service. So the way that our budget functions is it really does function as three budgets. We share it as a roll up of everything, but it really kind of functions as three budgets. There's a pre-K to 12, there is adult ed, and then there's food service. Because food service is fully funded by the state, as far back as I know, the Portland budget has had food service be self-contained and hasn't had tax levy funds go towards it in the last several years. And so what you see in that shortfall of the $1.2 million has to do with the fact that food service has been on a spend down because food service had a surplus and by law had to spend it down. And so you see this difference here is caused by that spend down stopping. In adult ed, what has typically happened with adult ed in Portland Public Schools is that they have a series of grant funds and state funding, and then they have a portion that is paid for through local budget, similar to the K-12 budget, where it's driven by property tax revenue. And for adult ed, typically they have gotten the same tax levy increase that goes to pre-K-12. It's just their portion of the overall tax levy. And so if in this proposal, not in this proposal, but in this slide here, if pre-K-12 tax levy went up by 3.51%, adult eds would also go up by 3.51%. What is happening in adult ed is that their COVID funds and the loss of COVID funds is later hitting them than it did to the K-12 because they were generally through grants. And then second is that there's just less grant money available across the country for adult ed. And so what's happening here is it assumes the tax levy increase of 3.51%, similar to pre-K-12, but then it's the loss of other grant funding that shows the decrease. So this is not a proposal of the district to reduce adult ed, but to do that. One of the things that's come up in this committee before is whether the committee could choose to asymmetrically increase the tax levy. And the answer to that is yes. And it would just change a little bit about how we word that final resolution, but that is possible. But that is not something the board or the committee has typically done. And I don't have any example of where that has been done. So just wanted to add that additional color before that came up.
That is very helpful and useful. And I also have a quick follow-up question about the food services shortfall. You were talking about how in recent years, food services had to do a spend down because of their fund balance. So I'm curious about whether that means sort of, I'm picturing like a graph where, there's like a plateau. For example, the recent spend down, does that mean that, for example, food service now has a bunch of new refrigerators and ovens and won't need to be making those investments in the upcoming year or two? Is that?
That is the general thought. It doesn't fully work out that way because for example, the food service, one of the things they brought in their spend down was a chef to be able to do meal plan design with the idea being that there could be an investment and then not have it continue. But also a lot of it went towards equipment.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. Any other questions before we move on? Okay, well, thank you very, very much. I always appreciate the thorough and easy to understand information about the budget process for those of us that are not, um, naturals at the budget. So thank you so much. Are we ready to move on to the org structure?
Yes. And just in that transition, I will share that again, within Diligent, you or the community can see what the initial asks are. And so if you were curious to follow it along and to see how it sort of changes from initial asks to cabinet asks, you can see that on Board Docs.
And in that document that's available on Board Docs, is that an example of a place where you would see 9% and just sort of like to give the community a reminder that the 9% is not what is being moved forward. It's just if, it's the request level, correct?
Yes.
Okay, super. Board Member Opperman, go ahead.
Dr. Scallon, in reference to that, I was just looking at that spreadsheet. When it refers to a negative value, does that mean that the school has requested less, or that there has been a suggestion to tell them to have less?
So there's been no point in the process where we've told people that there's a blanket cut or that they have to make a reduction. In some cases where you see that, it could be that there was a specific one-year investment this year that we know doesn't continue. Sometimes that's an example like the strategic plan evaluation of our multilingual programming. That's a one-year contract that we have going on this year that doesn't continue. So that budget line may show as a decrease. In other cases, it's where a school or department has identified that they need less funds in one area and more funds in another. And so you may see it as a negative there as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great, Dr. Opperman, thank you for that question because it gave me a second to pull up the slides. And so if you can just confirm if you can see that.
Yes.
Yes.
Great. So tonight I'm going to just walk you through 3 changes around our organizational structure and happy to answer any questions. Typically this would happen in the budget process, but one of them we've already shared about, and so this is just putting it within context. And the other 2, they are budget neutral or very close to, and is leveraging what are current vacancies. And so we're sharing this not to ask for a vote, but for awareness and any questions from the committee to help make the proposal stronger. And so just any thoughts, but again, not for a vote. And these are changes that we would look to move forward with sort of in the immediate so that, for example, the HR change happens before we get to the high season of hiring, and the enrollment change happens before we get to the high season of enrollment. And for the assistant soup, just recognizing that across the country in education, this is the sort of high season for hiring in general for senior leaders. So first, each year our organizational structure adjusts, and it adjusts to line with key priorities of the strategic plan. And this is not something that's new within the last couple of years. But if you were to go back in time and look at organizational charts in Portland, you'll see that every year there is some adjustment. And that's to recognize that our priorities and area of focus change each year, sometimes very minorly, but change. I'm going to share with you in a second just about how changes have looked over time, but just want to acknowledge that prior to FY24, and we're in FY26, prior to that, not all funding streams were reported in the budget books. And so it's not possible to do an exact apples to apples comparison prior to fiscal year 24 of either staffing or dollars spent per department. And so what you're going to see here is what the changes have been for fiscal year 24 to current, which is the 23-24 school year to present. And so since that window of time, The central office has decreased in total between 7 and 8%. It's right around 7.5%. And that's after factoring in increases of special education and early childhood services that have come about in the last year to address both areas identified in the special education audit, as well as the district taking on CDS services. And so at the same time that the central office has decreased between 7 and 8%, our school-based staff has increased between 2 and 3%. And so sometimes there's this feeling, because folks can see when a new position in the central office is posted, that it feels like there's always this growth. And in reality, what we actually see is the total number of staff across all departments has decreased. While at the same time, we've been really specific about targeting investment in our schools and making sure that that increases. One of those additions and changes that we've talked about for this coming year is the addition of the Assistant Superintendent of Student, Family, and Community Engagement. This person is responsible for targeted academic enrichment and making sure that we have that balance of rigorous programming and meeting students where they're at. And so examples of that type of work is Spring Ahead, our partnership with local university here, as well as Make It Happen. We know, and Dr. Opperman, I hear you in my head when I share this, we know that if we're going to truly close the gaps in assessment levels, that it's going to require thinking about extended school day and extended school year programming for students. And so this individual takes that on. We know that we can't do either of those first two bullets without leveraging community partners. And I think back to my first year here and meeting with all of our community partners, and they said, we want to support and be partnered with Portland Public Schools, but it's sometimes really hard to partner with you. And so we really need a point person for this work. And then the last is we have a great multilingual team and a great bit of parent engagement, and we need to think about what the long-term succession planning is around family and community engagement. And so part of this position is thinking about and owning that and being prepared to transition there. And so what that looks like from an organizational chart is, I'm just going to show this actually first. This is what it currently is. And so when we shared this last year, we talked about the fact that our Senior Director of Student Support, which is Jesse Applegate, in charge of special education, social work, et cetera, as well as the Senior Director of Early Childhood. We talked about those being in the strategy development side, and that as those matured, they would shift over to schools, because they really are closely working with our students and the schools. And as we've dug in deeper, we're just continuing to wrestle with exactly that timing on the right spit to make that change. And so what you see here is the addition of that position, and just highlighting the fact that it makes sense for the assistant superintendent and the executive director of families, because their work is so closely connected, that they have a common reporting structure, but we haven't figured out exactly where it makes sense for that to sit yet. And so just those four in salmon color, whatever that is, it is just a question of who they report to and at what timing. Otherwise, the organizational structures proposed does not change significantly compared to this year. And if you look at the materials in Diligent, you will see that the organizational chart for the last 5 years is there. So you can look at it for reference and actually see how there are fewer people in fewer departments relative to years past. The other pieces that I just wanted to share with you is we're making small changes to our enrollment team to improve services to family and support for our systems across the district. And there is two pieces here. One is that we currently have a district enrollment manager position, and that position is vacant. And so we're proposing to add a second enrollment and intake specialist. This adds capacity for enrollment, record verification, as it says here, as well as assessments that are needed to place our multilingual learners, and should help us serve those students and families faster. The second is recognizing both the leadership within our department, as well as the need to adjust slightly the reporting structure. And so this is proposing to reclassify the current data systems manager into a director of student records and data systems. And so what this is allowing a slightly larger team to report to Rebecca Vance Charles and recognizing her contributions to that team. Again, there's more details in the slides that I won't go through tonight for time, but are there for context. And then we're also proposing a small change to our HR team to focus on our monitoring, planning, and growth, specifically professional development. And here it is using and adjusting a current vacant position to be able to create a position that is focused around professional learning. And so this is designed so that we really, at the end of the day, make sure that all of our staff have access to really high quality professional development, and it doesn't just happen as a one-off. In addition, when our teachers and our other credentialed staff go for recertification, one of the things that they need to present to the state is around their continuing ed credits and the hours that they've spent in professional development. And right now, our tracking of that varies quite a bit between departments and between schools. And so we want to make sure that there's somebody who's really owning that and making sure it happens, so that when our staff go for certification or recertification, that those hours are there to support them in their recertification. So we view this as something that's a direct support. That right now would mean that we would then take an analyst position and a coordinator position and adjust the position a little bit so that the person would wear the coordinator hat for some points, and during high season would also support around recruitment. And so this is not creating, neither of the HR or the enrollment are creating additional positions, but instead are leveraging vacancies as they exist right now. And for Haley, who's been working with the enrollment team for a year and has learned about where there's a need to be able to adjust to meet that need, and Jennifer, who's been working with the new team for about a year as well to make adjustments to match up with that. So wanted to share those and see if there are any questions or feedback from the committee.
Thank you for that information. Before I open it up for potential questions from other committee members, I just wanted to clarify. I heard you use the word proposing a couple of times, just clarifying my understanding that the committee's not voting on these changes. It's more of an awareness conversation, correct?
That's correct.
Super. Any questions from committee members? All right. And I also do not have a question, but I do want to just express my appreciation for the context and information that was on that last batch of slides. It's really important for us to understand what's going on. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. So it is 7:10. We have two policies as part of our ongoing policy review work. Just for folks that might not have seen all of our previous meetings, what I'm talking about here is a whole slew of policies that have been identified as relevant to this committee because of their topic area having to do with finance, personnel, and operations. We've been going through a couple to a few at a time to see whether members of this committee might have any insight, opinions, feedback to pass along to the policy committee and our legal counsel as part of their broader review. It's 7:10. I recognize that there are very likely folks in this meeting that will need to be in a 7:30 meeting, so I'm going to try to get us out of here by 7:25. Is there any staff content on GBEC or GBEE, or is this primarily just a conversation about what we as committee members might have to say about those two policies?
You sort of put it in right context. The piece I would just add is that we'll get additional legal follow-up, in particular around the drug policy from our legal team, just to see what changes need to happen based on changes in Maine as well as federal law. But there's no additional staff recommendations based on any challenges we're having on the management leadership side at this point.
Yeah, so I will say, when I was reading through GBEC, that what jumped out at me, or my thought was, of course, I would be very interested in what Drummond has to say about the policy in general and what I'm about to say. But my thought was, I would love to see more of a focus on impairment, and less on sort of the moralistic view of various substances. And so when you look at it through the lens of impairment and safety impacts, I'm curious about potentially, what if an employee is taking prescription medication and there's a side effect that would impair them from being able to, operate machinery or something like that. I'd be curious about whether that would be appropriate to address in that policy.
I'm looking to see if Jennifer wants to comment on
that. Wants to comment. I think, I agree with Ryan. I would really want to engage with legal counsel to kind of know about that. I hear you, Board Member Bryden. I think it's a valid concern. We've got substances that are, we know are legal substances, and someone could test as having that in their system, even though they haven't been using that substance recently. And to your point, there's also things that someone may be doing because it's what their doctor has told them they need to do for self-care. And, the implications of that could be something that could impact their ability to do their job, especially, as you say, if they're operating heavy machinery and things like that. So I think it's a really valid question. I wouldn't even attempt to provide a legal analysis of that one. But I do think asking our legal counsel would be really wise.
Yep. Certainly not asking for that level of conversation in this meeting. Other committee members with thoughts, questions, or other comments on GBEC? Okay, let's move to GBEE. Did folks have any notes on that? And I believe that was the activities unrelated to school operations during the school. I actually did make a note. It looks like it hasn't been reviewed since 1992 when it shows. Can't use telephone to do any, commerce that doesn't have to do with the schools. I would be interested in seeing whether that could be adjusted to basically encompass all school district equipment. If you can't use the phone, you also can't use your district issued computer, those sorts of things. Other thoughts, questions, insights? All right, seeing none, I think we are done with our policy review for this meeting. And also, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that also means we are done with our agenda topics for the meeting. Super. All right, so I would be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Board Member Hofferman. Could I have a second? Wonderful. Thank you, Board Member Noor. And show of hands from the committee members. We are unanimously adjourned at 7:15 p.m. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks.